The massive crystal towers of Zenzo Prime gleamed under the light of twin suns as Ambassador Valletta floated through the corridors of the Galactic Harmony Coalition headquarters. His ethereal form pulsed with soft blue light, a sign of excitement that his species had not displayed in centuries. Today was special. Today they had found another species ready to join their peaceful family. Ambassador called Science Officer Quindel, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The data analysis is complete. The species calls themselves humans, and they inhabit the third planet of a system they named Sol. Vila's form brightened further. Show me everything. The holographic display materialized before them, showing a blue and green world teeming with life. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by networks of light that spoke of advanced technology. Most importantly, the orbital scans showed no signs of active warfare. Notice this, Quendel pointed with a finger that seemed made of liquid starlight. Their last major planetary conflict ended nearly 80 years ago. Since then they have established global communication networks, international trade agreements, and cooperative space exploration programs. Veltar studied the data with growing satisfaction. This was exactly what the Coalition looked for in potential members, a species that had evolved beyond its violent origins, one that had discovered the path to peace through natural progression. In his 1,000 years of service he had overseen the integration of dozens of such species. The pattern was always the same. Primitive aggression gave way to enlightened cooperation. Once a species reached sufficient technological advancement, prepare the first contact protocols, Veltar commanded. This species shows all the signs of being ready for harmony. The Coalition had perfected their integration process over millennia. First contact was always gentle, always respectful. They would approach the species with gifts of knowledge and technology, demonstrate the benefits of joining the galactic community, and gradually introduce them to the Coalition's core principles of non-violence and consensus building. 3 months later, the first meeting took place on a neutral space station constructed specifically for such encounters. The human delegation arrived in a sleek vessel that impressed even the engineers. Their technology was indeed advanced, showing creative solutions that spoke of a naturally intelligent species. The humans were bipedal, as expected, with an interesting variety of physical features. Their leader, a diplomat named Li Jun, spoke with careful precision about his people's desire for peace and cooperation. Beside him stood a man introduced as Park Minho, described as a military advisor, though the Coalition found this title curious since truly peaceful species had no need for military advisors. "We are honored by your invitation," Li Jun said, his words translated perfectly by the Coalition's universal communication system. "Humanity has long dreamed of joining a larger galactic community. We believe that together we can achieve great things." Ambassador Veltar was pleased by the humans' diplomatic language. "Your species has shown remarkable progress," he replied. "We have observed your transition from conflict to cooperation. This is the natural path of all intelligent life." Park Minho remained silent during most of the formal discussions, but Veltar noticed how his eyes constantly moved, taking in every detail of the station's layout, the positioning of Coalition security personnel, and the technical specifications of their equipment. The Coalition found this curiosity endearing, another sign of an intelligent species eager to learn. The negotiations proceeded smoothly over several weeks. The humans asked detailed questions about Coalition technology, defensive capabilities, and the structure of galactic governance. They were particularly interested in how the Coalition handled disputes between member species and what protocols existed for dealing with external threats. "We have not faced a serious external threat in over 2,000 years, Veltar explained proudly. "When conflicts arise, we resolve them through meditation, discussion, and consensus building. Violence is simply not part of our nature anymore." Li Jun nodded thoughtfully. "And if a species refused to engage in such peaceful resolution?" "It has never happened," Quendel interjected. "Once a species evolves to our level of consciousness, they naturally embrace harmony. Violence becomes impossible to consider." During these conversations, Park Minho often asked technical questions that seemed oddly specific. He wanted to know about Coalition fleet compositions, response times to emergency situations, and the defensive capabilities of member worlds. The Coalition interpreted these questions as natural curiosity from a species about to join their peaceful alliance. The signing ceremony took place on Earth itself, in a great hall overlooking the blue oceans that had impressed the Coalition observers. Representatives from dozens of Coalition species attended, of various forms of communication, creating a symphony of harmony that filled the air with light and sound. "Today we welcome humanity into our circle of peace," Beltar proclaimed, his form glowing brighter than ever before. "May your people find the same tranquility that has blessed our worlds for generations." Li Jun signed the integration documents with a steady hand. "We are grateful for this opportunity. Humanity looks forward to contributing to galactic stability and peace." Park Min-ho stood beside him, and for a moment, his composed expression shifted. Something flickered in his dark eyes, not malice, but a kind of calculating intensity that the Coalition delegates missed entirely. He was memorizing everything: the Coalition's diplomatic procedures, their assumptions about conflict resolution, their obvious lack of military preparedness. As the ceremony concluded and the Coalition delegation prepared to depart, they felt the deep satisfaction of another successful integration. They had found another species that had evolved beyond violence, another member for their peaceful family, that none of them realized they had just invited a predator into their garden. The peaceful morning on Zenthari Prime shattered when the first distress signal arrived. Ambassador Veltar was reviewing routine diplomatic reports when his communication crystal began flashing urgent red patterns. The signal came from the outer rim world of Kepler 438b, one of the Coalition's newest agricultural colonies. "Ambassador," Science Officer Quendel's voice carried panic for the first time in centuries. "We're receiving emergency transmissions from 17 different worlds. They're all saying the same thing: black ships, massive fleet, complete communication, blackout within hours." Veltar's ethereal form dimmed as he processed the information. The Coalition had not faced a military threat in over 2,000 years. Their protocols for handling aggression were theoretical, based on ancient histories that most species had forgotten. "Show me the tactical display," he commanded, though the word tactical felt foreign on his tongue. The holographic map of Coalition space appeared before them, dotted with the warm blue lights that represented member worlds. As they watched, those lights began going dark one by one, starting from the outer rim and moving inward toward the core systems. The pattern was methodical, calculated. Whoever was attacking them understood exactly how Coalition infrastructure worked. They were hitting communication hubs first, then transportation networks, then population centers. Each world fell silent within hours of the first attack. "Who could be doing this?" Quendel whispered, her translucent form trembling with fear. The answer came from deep space. Monitoring stations that had remained hidden during the initial assault. The attackers called themselves the Kethmori Empire, and their ships emerged from the dark space between galaxies like nightmares made real. Their vessels were angular, black, and massive, each one larger than a Coalition city. But it wasn't their size that made them terrifying. It was their obvious purpose. These ships had been designed for one thing: war. Their hulls bristled with weapons that Coalition scanners could barely understand. Their shields operated on frequencies that Coalition technology couldn't penetrate. Everything about them screamed of centuries spent preparing for this moment. "They know us," Veltar realized with growing horror. "They know exactly how we think, how we react, how we defend ourselves." The Kethmori strategy was brutally simple and devastatingly effective. They would arrive at a Coalition world with overwhelming force, demonstrate their superior firepower, then wait. The Coalition species would respond exactly as they had been conditioned to respond for millennia. They would attempt to negotiate, offer concessions, and retreat to designated safe zones while awaiting diplomatic resolution. The Kethmori would allow the negotiations to begin, even encourage them. They would let Coalition representatives believe that peaceful resolution was possible. Then, while the Coalition leaders debated and discussed, Kethmori forces would systematically capture key infrastructure, round up populations, and strip the worlds of resources. By the time the Coalition realized that negotiation was impossible, it was too late. The Kethmori had already moved on to the next world, leaving behind enslaved populations and burning cities, Sir reported. Communication Officer Threnavor, his voice breaking with strain. "We've lost contact with 43 worlds in the past 72 hours. The Kethmori fleet is moving toward the core systems." Veltar watched helplessly as his peaceful civilization crumbled. The Coalition had no military, no weapons, no concept of organized resistance. They had evolved beyond such primitive needs, or so they had believed. "Send the evacuation protocols to all remaining worlds," he ordered, his voice heavy with despair. "All populations are to retreat to designated safe zones. Begin diplomatic channels with the Kethmori leadership. There must be something they want that we can negotiate. The standard coalition emergency response plan was simple. Evacuate civilians, minimize casualties, and maintain communication with the hostile force while seeking peaceful resolution. It was a plan that had worked for minor disputes between member species. It was completely useless against an enemy that had spent centuries studying their weaknesses. Among the worlds receiving the evacuation order was Earth. The message arrived at the Coalition Liaison Office in Geneva, where diplomat Li Jun read it with growing disbelief. The instructions were clear and detailed. All major population centers were to be evacuated within 24 hours. Military personnel were to stand down and avoid provocative actions. And all communication channels with the approaching enemy were to remain open for diplomatic contact. Li Jun had worked with humans long enough to know that this message would not be received well. He immediately contacted General Kim Dae-ho, Earth's military coordinator for coalition affairs. The general's office was already a hive of activity when Li Jun arrived. Multiple screens displayed tactical information, troop movements, and industrial production reports. Officers moved with the precise efficiency of a species that had never forgotten how to fight. General Li Jun began carefully. I've received the Coalition's emergency protocols. They're requesting that we begin immediate evacuation procedures. Kim Dae-ho looked up from a holographic display showing the Kethmori fleet positions. His expression was the calm focus of a predator studying its prey. Evacuation. The word came out flat, without emotion. Ambassador, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about humanity's capabilities. Li Jun shifted uncomfortably. Sir, the Coalition has specific protocols for handling aggressive species. The goal is to minimize casualties while maintaining diplomatic options. The goal, Kim Dae-ho replied, his voice carrying an edge that made seasoned officers pause, in their work, is to eliminate threats to human civilization. We don't negotiate with predators. We don't evacuate from our own territory. We fight. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Coalition had invited humanity into their peaceful family, assuming they were just another evolved species that had abandoned warfare, and they had never considered that humans might have simply become better at it. The transformation of Earth began within minutes of General Kim Dae-ho's first briefing. Across the planet, systems that had appeared dormant suddenly roared to life with frightening efficiency. In the frozen wasteland of Antarctica, what the Coalition had believed was a simple research station began to change. The ice cracked and shifted as massive structures rose from beneath the surface. Weapons testing facilities, manufacturing plants, and launch platforms emerged from their hiding places, like sleeping giants, awakening from a long dream. Dr. Lim Soyoung stood in the Central Command Center, watching as her teams began the work they had secretly prepared for decades. Around her, scientists and engineers moved with practiced precision, activating systems that had been designed but never tested in actual combat. The particle beam arrays are coming online, reported her assistant, Dr. Park Ji-men. Estimated time to full operational capacity, 18 hours. Good, Dr. Lim replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were beginning. Initialize the manufacturing protocols. We'll need every advantage we can get. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Japan, automotive factories stopped producing cars and began assembling military vehicles. In Germany, precision manufacturing plants switched from making industrial equipment to crafting weapons components. In the United States, aerospace companies redirected their entire production capacity toward military spacecraft. The speed of the transformation shocked even Earth's own leaders. What had appeared to be a peaceful, civilian industrial base revealed itself as a military machine that had simply been waiting for activation. Every factory, every research facility, every technological advancement had been designed with dual purposes in mind. General Kim Dae-ho stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, a facility that officially didn't exist. The walls were lined with screens showing real-time data from around the world. Troop movements, industrial production rates, resource allocation, all of it coordinated with an efficiency that would have been impossible without decades of careful planning. Sir, reported Colonel Oh Sung-min, his voice carrying the calm professionalism of a man who had trained his entire life for this moment. Global mobilization is proceeding on schedule. All major population centers have activated their defense networks. The colonel's statement would have confused the coalition observers, who had seen no evidence of defense networks during their initial surveys. They had missed the underground facilities, the concealed weapon systems, and the civilian infrastructure that could be converted to military use within hours. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-yong approached the main display, her tablet showing analysis that would have horrified the peaceful coalition species. General, we've completed our assessment of Kethmori technology. Their weapons are powerful, but they're designed to counter coalition defenses. They won't expect our approach. Kim Dae-ho studied the data with the focused intensity of a predator studying its prey. The Kethmori had spent centuries preparing to fight the coalition, but they had never encountered humanity's approach to warfare, where the coalition sought to minimize conflict. Humans sought to end it as quickly and decisively as possible. What's their biggest weakness? He asked. Overconfidence, replied Captain Nam Tae-woo from his position at the tactical display. They've conquered 43 worlds using the same strategy. They expect negotiation, retreat, and gradual surrender. They're not prepared for immediate aggressive response. The door to the command center opened, and Diplomat Lee Jun entered with an expression of barely controlled panic. Behind him, a holographic projection of Ambassador Veltar flickered to life, the alien's ethereal form pulsing with distress. General Kim Veltar's voice carried desperation that resonated through the translation system. Please, you must reconsider this course of action. The coalition has protocols for handling aggressive species. Surrender is not defeat, it's the beginning of diplomatic resolution. Kim Dae-ho turned to face the projection, his expression unchanged. Ambassador, we've studied your protocols. We've also studied the Kethmori response to those protocols. 43 worlds have followed your advice. How many of them still exist as functioning civilizations? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Veltar's form dimmed as he struggled to answer. The truth was that none of the conquered worlds retained their original populations or governments. The Kethmori had enslaved some, relocated others, and completely stripped the resources from all of them. Violence only creates more violence, Veltar insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Surely there must be another way. There is, Kim Dae-ho replied calmly. Complete victory achieved through superior strategy and overwhelming force. The Kethmori understand only strength. We will speak to them in the only language they comprehend. Colonel Oh Sungmin stepped forward with new intelligence reports. Sir, our deep space monitoring stations have detected the Kethmori fleet's approach vector. They're using the same formation that conquered the coalition worlds. Estimated time to Earth orbit: 72 hours. The general nodded. They expect us to retreat, to evacuate our cities, to prepare for negotiation. Instead, we'll meet them at the edge of our solar system. Dr. Lim Soyoung's voice came through the communication system from Antarctica. General, the new weapon systems are ready for field testing. We've incorporated countermeasures for their shield technology. Lee Jun looked around the command center with growing horror. These humans weren't just refusing to follow coalition protocols, they were actively preparing for war with an enthusiasm that terrified him. Every screen, every report, every conversation focused on how to fight more effectively. How long have you been planning this? He asked quietly. Kim Dae-ho's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, humanity has been planning for war since we first looked at the stars. We hoped we'd never need these preparations, but we've never been foolish enough to believe that peace was guaranteed. The coalition had invited humanity into their peaceful family, assuming they were just another evolved species that had abandoned warfare. They had never considered that humans might have simply become better at it. The mining world of Kepler-4 had become a place of horror under Kethmori occupation. What had once been a peaceful coalition colony now served as a processing center where enslaved aliens worked to extract resources for the Empire. The Kethmori had chosen this world specifically because it demonstrated their power, taking a defenseless population and turning them into tools for conquest. War leader Grailvon stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the slave operations with satisfaction. His forces had conquered this world in less than 6 hours, following the same pattern that had worked on 42 other coalition planets. The aliens had attempted negotiation, retreated to safe zones, and finally surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. Sir, reported his tactical officer, we're detecting hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Multiple contacts, moving at high speed. Grailvon barely looked up from his reports. Another coalition rescue attempt. How many ships? 17 vessels. Sir, they're maintaining formation and, sir, they're not following standard coalition approach patterns. This caught the war leader's attention. Coalition ships always approached slowly, broadcasting diplomatic messages and requesting negotiation. These ships were moving with purpose. their formation tight and aggressive. "Show me," he commanded. That the tactical display revealed something that made Graelvon pause. The approaching ships were arranged in a spear formation, with the largest vessels at the point and smaller craft protecting the flanks. It was a formation designed for attack, not negotiation. "What species are they?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. The ship designs don't match any coalition technology in our database." Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the enemy positions with the calm focus of someone who had spent years preparing for this moment. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, their training taking over as they prepared for humanity's first real space battle. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Captain Park Sujin from the communications station. "The Kethmori fleet is holding position around the planet. They don't seem to consider us a threat." HFY smiled grimly. "Then we'll have to educate them. All ships, begin attack run. Target their command vessel first." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at maximum weapon range, their ships immediately opening fire with weapons the Kethmori had never seen before. Instead of the energy beams or missile salvos they expected, the humans used kinetic projectiles that moved too fast for standard defensive systems to track. The Kethmori flagship's shields flared as tungsten rods struck at a significant fraction of light speed. The impact sent shockwaves through the massive vessel, systems failing as the aliens scrambled to respond. "What kind of weapons are those?" Graelvan demanded as his ship shuddered under the assault. "Unknown technology, sir. Our shields are absorbing the impact, but the kinetic energy is overloading our systems." Before the war leader could respond, human fighter craft were among his fleet. The small ships moved with precision that defied everything the Keth knew about space combat. They didn't follow predictable attack patterns or maintain safe distances. Instead, they wove between enemy vessels, targeting weak points with surgical strikes. Lieutenant Commander Kim Manesio pulled her fighter through a turn that would have killed most species, using the gravitational field of the planet itself to slingshot past a Kethmori destroyer. Her weapons found the ship's engine core, and the alien vessel began to drift as its power systems failed. "This is Eagle 7, she reported over the tactical network. "Enemy vessel disabled. Moving to next target." The space battle raged for 3 hours, but the outcome became clear within the first 30 minutes. The Kethmori had superior numbers and firepower, but the humans fought with tactics that turned every advantage against them. They used the planet's gravity, the debris from damaged ships, and even the electromagnetic interference from the mining operations to confuse enemy sensors. On the planet's surface, Captain Seo Donghyun led the 7th Marine Battalion in an assault that redefined ground warfare. His forces didn't attack the Kethmori positions directly. Instead, they studied the enemy's defensive layout and turned it into a trap. "The Kethmori have fortified the high ground," he explained to his unit commanders over the tactical network. "They expect us to attack uphill. Instead, we're going to make them come to us." The plan was simple in concept but devastating in execution. Human forces infiltrated the mining tunnels that ran beneath the Kethmori positions, placing explosive charges at key structural points. When the charges detonated, the enemy's fortifications collapsed into the tunnels, creating confusion and separating their forces. "Now we take out their communications," Seo Donghyun ordered. "Isolate their command structure, then collapse their defensive perimeter from the inside out." Sergeant Lee Minyong led her squad through the chaos of the collapsed fortifications, their weapons targeting the communication arrays that connected Kethmori units. Within minutes, the enemy forces were blind and unable to coordinate their defense, but the most shocking development came from Major Hunda Jin's engineering corps. While the battle raged, her teams captured intact Kethmori equipment and began reverse engineering it in real time. Using portable fabrication units, they modified human weapons to fire Kethmori energy bolts. "Sir," reported Corporal Namhai-1, "we've successfully integrated their power cores with our weapon systems. The energy output is 30% higher than our standard munitions." Within hours, human soldiers were using modified Kethmori weapons that burned through the enemy's own shields. The aliens found themselves facing their own technology, improved and turned against them with terrifying efficiency. War leader Graelvan watched his forces crumble with growing disbelief. These humans didn't just fight, they adapted, learned, and improved with every engagement. They turned his own weapons against him, used his tactics to defeat him, and seemed to anticipate his every move. "How are they doing this?" he demanded, as his forces retreated from their third defensive position. His tactical officer's response was the admission of a species that had never faced true predators. "Sir, I don't know. They fight like they've been studying us for centuries." The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Humans had been studying warfare itself for millennia. The Kethmori were just the latest enemy to learn what that meant. The capital world of the Kethmori Empire had never seen defeat. For 3 centuries, it had been the center of a military machine that conquered entire star systems. Its orbital fortresses bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. Its surface was covered with training facilities where warriors learned to serve their masters. Its rulers had believed themselves untouchable. Now, General Kim Dae-ho stood in the throne room of the Kethmori High Command, watching as the last of their leaders knelt in surrender. The room was massive, designed to intimidate visitors, with its dark stone walls and towering statues of past conquerors. Today, it felt empty and small. The Kethmori Empire formally surrenders all military assets and territorial claims, spoke war leader Graelvan, his voice hollow with defeat. "We request terms for our people's survival." Kim Dae-ho studied the alien leader with the same calm focus he had maintained throughout the war. Around him, his staff officers took notes and monitored the proceedings with professional detachment. Colonel Oh Sung-min recorded everything while Dr. Lim Soyoung analyzed the surrendered technical data. "There will be no negotiation," Kim Dae-ho replied simply. "Your military infrastructure will be completely dismantled. Your weapons will be destroyed or claimed by human forces. Your population will be relocated to monitored worlds where they will learn to live peacefully." The words sent shockwaves through the assembled Kethmori leadership. They had expected the usual coalition approach: lengthy negotiations, prisoner exchanges, and gradual rehabilitation. Instead, they faced total dissolution of their civilization. "You cannot simply destroy an entire culture," protested war leader Graelvan. "We have rights, traditions, history." "You have a history of conquest, slavery, and genocide," interrupted Admiral Yuji Hai, her voice cutting through the aliens' protests. "Your traditions involve subjugating other species. Your culture is built on violence. All of that ends now." The systematic dismantling of the Kethmori Empire began immediately. Human engineering teams, led by Captain Nam Tae-woo, moved through the military installations with the efficiency of a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. Every weapon was catalogued, every ship was either destroyed or claimed, every piece of aggressive technology was removed. The process was methodical and complete. Unlike the Coalition's approach of hoping for peaceful change, the humans ensured that the Kethmori would never again have the capability to threaten other species. It wasn't cruelty, it was practical problem-solving on a galactic scale. Major Handa Jin oversaw the relocation of Kethmori populations to designated worlds. These weren't prison planets, but they were carefully chosen locations where the former warriors would have no access to advanced technology or military resources. They would be monitored, educated, and gradually integrated into peaceful society. "How many generations do you think it will take?" asked Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-young as she watched transport ships carry Kethmori families to their new homes. 2, maybe 3, Han De-jin replied. "Their children will grow up without the warrior culture. By the 3rd generation they'll be as peaceful as any Coalition species." The speed and thoroughness of the human victory shocked the Coalition. More than the original Kethmori invasion, 8 months from the first attack to complete victory, it was a timeline that defied everything they understood about warfare and conflict resolution. On Zenthari Prime, Ambassador Veltar called an emergency session of the Coalition Council. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Crystal Chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of confusion and fear. "We need to discuss the human situation," Veltar began, his ethereal form flickering with uncertainty. "They have exceeded all expectations, but their methods are ... concerning." The holographic display showed the final statistics of the war. Kethmori military casualties, 847,000. Coalition civilian casualties. During the rescue operations, 12. Human military casualties, 1,847. The numbers spoke of a level of military efficiency that terrified peacekeeping species. "They fought a war of total annihilation," whispered Science Officer Quendel. "Not just victory, but the complete elimination of their enemy's ability to fight. And now they're rebuilding Coalition infrastructure faster than we ever could," added Communication Officer Threneval. "They've established security networks, defensive systems, and rapid response capabilities across 43 worlds." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just saved the coalition, they had fundamentally changed it. Every world now had human-designed defense systems. Every trade route was monitored by human patrols. Every diplomatic meeting included human observers. The door to the chamber opened, and General Kim Dae-ho entered with his senior staff. They moved with the quiet confidence of beings who had proven themselves the apex predators of the galaxy. Ambassador Velta, Kim Dae-ho nodded respectfully. You requested this meeting. Velta's form pulsed with nervous energy. General, we are grateful for your intervention. The coalition owes humanity a debt that cannot be repaid. But we must ask, what do you want from us? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The coalition representatives waited, expecting demands for territory, resources, or political control. Instead, Kim Dae-ho exchanged glances with his officers. Oh Sung-min, Dr. Lim So-young, Captain Nom Tae-won smiled slightly. We want exactly what we've always wanted, he replied. Peace, stability, the freedom to explore and grow without fear of predators. And if new threats emerge? Velta asked quietly. Admiral Yuji-hai stepped forward, her expression calm but resolute. Then we'll handle them. That's what we do. The Coalition Council realized that their greatest dream had been achieved. The galaxy was at peace, safer than it had ever been. But it wasn't the harmony they had envisioned through meditation and consensus building. It was peace through strength, maintained by beings who understood that sometimes the only way to protect civilization was to be more dangerous than anything that threatened it. The galaxy was quiet now. Trade flowed freely between worlds. Diplomatic missions proceeded without fear of attack. Scientific exploration expanded into previously dangerous regions of space. And everyone knew the Hellwalkers were watching.